Hello, this is Terry from Fabric Junction in the beautiful Black Hills of South Dakota. Today we're going to do an Ohio Star pot holder, but what I want to show you is the technique of making half square triangles and then also how to make them, convert them into hourglass squares. So we have lengthy instructions for you, the yardage and the cutting, and you will need an 11-inch piece and an 11-inch piece for your back and your insulation, and I use a product called Inso-Bright. Then we have our 4.5-inch squares, 2 of each color. For the center on this one, I fussy cut it a 3.5-inch square. It could have been some more of the peppers on this one. It could be anything you want. On the one that I have finished here, my center square is the same fabric that I used on the back. I know they look different, but they are the same fabric. And then the 2 colors, this is my red, will be blue here. Oh, excuse me, I'm doing it backwards. Red is my background on this one. The peppers are the stars on this one. The nice thing about this particular project is I use a tool that's called the 1/4-inch seam marker from Fonts and Porter, and it comes in a package. You get 2 to help you mark your stitching line, and that's the thing I like about this one. When I'm only doing a handful of half square triangles, I use this tool because it actually, instead of marking just the center of, a lot of times different ones I'll have you take like your ruler and you mark the center and then you sew either side. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just there is a lot of different techniques. And in this case, we are going to lay our tool down and we'll pencil line, and I have actually got a pencil line, but you pencil line both sides. And this becomes our stitch line. So it just makes it that little bit easier. Now when I use the tool, I use it one of 2 ways. Sometimes I line it up on a corner and line up the other end. Sometimes if I have like my larger one in my hand, I line up the black and yellow line on that point, find one that'll match, on that point, on this one, and I mark. Either way, you'll get a nice line to make your half square triangle. So the next step is to match them up with their mate and sew. I didn't do any sewing ahead of time so that you have an idea that I do a lot of chain sewing. And it does speed up a little bit when you do it this way. So I have my nice line. As you can see, I haven't cut any thread yet. I'm going to get as much sewing done as I can. So once you have them, then you can cut them. If you don't want to use a scissor to cut them, you can actually just, whoops, there. We'll take this. You just line up your straight edge from point to point, and you can cut it that way. Either way works. Now we need to press. And like always, press to the dark or the less bulky. In this case, my colors are so similar, I can just choose which which direction I'm going to press. After I have them pressed, I restack them in twos. I turn so that I have opposites. Before I get too carried away, I need to know where to stitch. So I grab my guide, I line it up, and again, pencil mark both sides. When you're marking, try not to stretch the fabric. The intent is only to get a mark on there, not to pull the fabric out of shape. So I line them up, and you can visually see to line up your points, line up across, and then you can feel that those two seams are butted up against each other. If you're not 100% sure, you just want to check, put your finger there and roll it back. And if it lines up, then you know you've got them butted up. If you would like to pin that, you can, but make sure you don't shift it when you pin. So once again, I am chain piecing. Now, I intentionally made these blocks just a hair bigger than what I actually need. And the reason I did that is so now I can also show you, after we get them cut, how to square them up. Because when you have a design in the middle, or seams in the middle, you can't, they take just a little extra time to square your pieces up. But back to the yarn. Okay, our goal is to have a 3.5 inch square. So to do that, find your 3.5 inch, and half of 3.5 is 1 3/4. So you want to make sure that your tool has a diagonal line. I'm moving around. Hopefully Christopher's keeping up. That you have this diagonal line, because that's what is very important. Find your 1 3/4 mark. If you need to mark it, get your painter's tape out and put a little bit of painter's tape right there so you know where it is. Don't cover it up, but just to give you an idea where it is. And the same can be done on your 3.5. Once you've located, on this one here, I've got the little arrow. Once you've located that mark, you place it right on the intersection, right in that intersection. Keep your line lined up with your seam allowance, and then just trim. You have two sides trimmed. Give it a half turn. Now you can line up on your 3.5, and if you look, your 1 3/4 should be right where it belongs. And trim again. And now you've got your nice little 3.5. Well, got a little bitty corner there. See if there we go. Hourglass. So now you have turned your half square triangles into an hourglass. And not only have you turned it into an hourglass, but you've kept the intersection in the center of your block. This is where I should have had these done ahead of time, but that's okay. If you don't mind waiting for me to get these cut. And I noticed every once in a while, if you noticed, my square does kind of slide a little bit. Part of that is because I'm so far away from my body. I generally don't cut this far away. I generally cut a lot closer. And then I have more control over whatever square or straight edge I'm using. Okay, I have them ready. Now we're ready to put our block together. So, where did I do? There it is. There's my center. Now I'm going to give it stars. I got to remember the pepper is my star. The red's my background. Nice and bright. Okay, we're going to sew it together, and as always, I chain. From your angle, you would start here and go over. From me, I got to start here, but you think of reading position. You start from the left and work your way to the right. So here's my left, my first one folds over, and now we're ready to sew our block together. And I am using a 1/4 inch seam. There we go. I go right down. Open up to make sure that I have my right one, and now I'm going to start again. As you can see, I did not separate them. I want to keep them chained together. Keeping them chained together, I don't have to think about what goes where or how they go. They're already that way. So now I take the two, and I know I haven't pressed, but again, I just move that seam to the less bulky, which in this case is the side that wasn't pieced. The other thing you want to watch, and it is kind of hard, but you want to try to cross that little intersection. And flop it open, do the other side. You just match up those seam allowances. That's what I'm doing. If you're uncomfortable doing it this way, go ahead and match them up and put a little pin in there, but don't cut the stitching apart. So I have my block, and it came out very nice. Now it's time to press. And when I press on something like this, I try to stay with whatever direction it wants to fall. So I've already pressed those, but the center, I don't want it to get so bulky. So I'm kind of working it down. I don't press it super tight because I can get it from this side after I get all the other parts down. So I have everything down. Now you're going to get ready to quilt. So place your back, your Insel Bright, and your piece will be a little bigger than mine. I just grabbed one of my scraps. And then your block, your finished block. So you place that on there, and now you want to quilt it. And you can quilt as much or as little as you want. Dig out your walking foot and stitch in the ditch. Just stitch where you have, you'll end up. And that'll create this beautiful star on the other side. Maybe you want to do something as dense as what I did on this one. This is a stitch that's actually in the machine, and I just did it kind of not real straight. Some of them angle this way, but I just went back and forth just to have fun and do something different. I'm going to leave you right here, but watch the next video on how to bind our pot holder. But if you don't want to make a pot holder, make a beautiful quilt. This makes into a gorgeous quilt. Do a baby one. Make 12 blocks and a couple borders or sashing. Be very creative. The intent of today was to show you how to do your half square triangle, convert it to an hourglass, and how to square it up. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching us at Fabric Junction.